My name is CJ Obasi, and I'm a filmmaker. It just so happens that the kind of films that, interest me, seem to fall into a certain niche. It just so happens to be that way. I think as a filmmaker, to really be an effective filmmaker, you have to find the kind of stories that appeal to you and that you're very passionate about. I don't think you, as a filmmaker, you are able to really give it your best if you make films that you don't feel strongly about. Well, it wasn't just, it wasn't a one-man job. I had an awesome producer. And also it was a great collaborative effort, not just, with the crew, but with the actors as well. Ojuju was a zero, budget film, and in the true sense of the word, no budget. It's not a gimmick, it really was. Like, I don't think we had, 50,000 naira going into the set, like in cash, like that's how much of a zero budget it was, so, but the thing was, I just feel like when some things are meant to happen, there are certain factors that just come together, and make it work. The number one was we had a crew, a professional crew, who were willing to do the job pro bono. Because just because something is zero budget doesn't mean that they are doing it for free. It just means that they are willing to defer their payment. So, people get that, misconstrued because, I don't believe that. I believe that even if you don't have millions and millions to give people, everyone should be, to some degree, compensated for, the amount of work they put it into a project. So it's a zero budget film, and a lot of people worked on it without getting paid at the time. But, as the years went by and the movie did well in the festival and international circuit, got some distribution deals, were able to offset. It wasn't an easy thing at all, but we were able to offset the bills on the movie. But it's just, I think we were able to pull it off by having people, like-minded people who are willing to just do the work, put the work first before money. That's the only way you can pull it off. No other way. To be honest, I don't know if I can even pull it off again, because I think it was a one-time thing that was just meant to happen at that time. The truth was, I was making my first film. So I still don't know why people believed in me. A lot of the guys who worked on Ojuju had years and years of experience. You mentioned like even the actors who were like, they're already doing work with, well-established filmmakers and producers in Nollywood. And, this guy comes out, says he wants to do a zombie film, and they jump on it. With a little issue and doubt, and, which is, I think, normal to ask, to be worried about. But at the end of the day, they came through, most of them anyways. So at the end of the day, I think, I always say like it was just meant to be, because there's no precedence for that, or that there was no reason for them to give me that level of trust. But I do like, all kinds of genre. I always like to make that clear every time I have a chance. I'm a fan of cinema as a whole, which means I appreciate all kinds of cinema, comedy, romance, thriller, drama, everything. But as a filmmaker, there are certain kinds of stories that appeal to me and that I feel like I can give it my best in terms of my aesthetic. I can bring my own vision and aesthetic and style and texture to it that I might not bring to to another genre, so to speak. And with Ojuju, naturally, Ojuju had a lot of things going for it that made it happen, because the first film I wanted to make was Old Town. But Old Town, when you look at Old Town as a genre, you would probably describe it as a crime, sort of like drama / thriller. But then when you watch it, is a juxtaposition of different genres mashed up together. So like the way I would describe Old Town is I would describe it as a, you know, like an exploration of genre cinema, where I just like sort of like pour out my love for film. So in there you're going to find, you know, thriller, even elements of supernatural horror, references to, you know, films that influenced me, you know, and all kinds of, you know, it's a love letter basically to film, you know, and that's how I see Old Town. But with Ojuju, Ojuju is more a horror comedy than anything, you know, it's more pure genre comedy horror. And the reason why I leaned towards that was because at the time it was the one that was most achievable. You know, we couldn't get funding for Old Town, because how could we describe it? We said it's a semi-autobiographical crime saga based on an omnipresent filmmaker who has an oversight of the underworld of Old Town. It just sounds like too much. So like, how do you even pitch that? So, but Ojuju, even though we still couldn't get funding for it, but it was achievable because we were able to like leverage on relationships and, you know, people who were just excited about it or wanted to be part of something different from what they've been doing before. So we just got that made. And it was on the backbone of Ojuju that we were able to, you know, self-finance, you know, Old Town. But, you know, like if you think about it, like those are like really the only two feature films I've done. You know, Ojuju released in 2014 and Old Town in 2015. But I know when you think about it, it sounds like I've done like so many, you know, things. So those are the only two feature films. And with Mami Wata will actually be my third feature film, which I haven't made it yet, you know. So, but when I do make it, that'll be my third feature film. So the other work, Hello Rain, is actually a short film. And when you count filmography, in terms of a director's, you know, body of work, usually they count feature films and not, you know, short films. But, you know, I mean, I had so much fun making Hello Rain. Just even getting the option from, you know, an author that I admire so much and have such love and respect for, you know, was such a big deal for me. I mean, you have someone who is, you know, being courted by the likes of HBO, Netflix, you know, Disney, Marvel, and then there's me. You know, like, you know, like it just blew me away that happened.
They tell you, say, I see them with my two korokoro like this. You don't even talk anything. You be don't forget, say, Aisha na Ashia be.
I don't want to take concern.
No worry. It was so concerned, just to watch everything like film.
No. Where did they go? Everybody don't follow Juju. Hey!
How do you say this that? Shina, lemon with the fresh air. I mean, what would they drink?
If not by that one, you know, say by now we go down be Juju.
I have a lot of fun every time I'm putting together a project with Ojuju. Like once we mentioned zombie, like nobody even wanted to hear it. It was like, what? Like, you know, like get out of here. And till today, you know, we still get that, you know, skepticism from Nigerians, you know, like, because I think you can't really blame Nigerians when they react that way. I mean, like, Ojuju got a lot more international acceptance, you know, than local, you know, and I think the reason is mostly because our experience of the zombie subgenre comes from the West. You know, that's our experience, that's what we know. So when anyone of us tries to make that, we feel like, hey, he's trying to make a Resident Evil, or hey, he's trying to make a Walking Dead. You know, that's, so immediately there's skepticism, there's a pushback. You know, but once we understand the concept of the zombie subgenre and the fact that even the roots, the zombie, the concept of the zombie has its roots in Africa, if you think about it. You know, like, this is where the story came from. When you think about the Haitian voodoo and, you know, the Africans who were able to raise their undead, you know, in the legends and all that stuff. That's where it came from, you know. So, but beyond that, there's a social commentary, you know, that underlines the zombie subgenre. When you talk about society and how society, you know, has been brainwashed, you know, and how, you know, people are being constantly conformed to be a certain way. You know, there's something about that, you know, that the zombie subgenre addresses, you know, in terms of that. And then there are other underlining themes. For example, with Ojuju, it wasn't just about making a zombie film. It was about making something very organic and real to the Nigerian environment, which is why in the film opens with, you know, a caption that says 70 million Nigerians don't have access to clean drinking water. And that is real. That is the real life situation. So it wasn't based off of some supernatural, you know, occurrence that turned people. You know, it was based off of a real situation in Nigeria where we don't know what's in our water. And more than half the population of the country are drinking, you know, these waters that have for decades been contaminated by toxic wastes into the water bodies, and people have been drinking these things, right? We already have issues with, you know, river blindness is crazy in Nigeria. We already have issues with so many other, you know, like typhoid fever and stuff like that. We have all that killing, you know, by the millions, literally. And those things are not being addressed, right? So with the great thing about a zombie subgenre film is that you are able to address some of those issues, but you're not addressing them in a way of saying, hey, this is what I'm talking about. But, you know, when Ojuju played in like in different international festivals around the world, and all the critics, you know, talked about it, those were some of the things they highlighted, you know, about the movie, and they got it complete, like, you know, instantly. And that's what filmmaking is. With Mami Wata, we are in the funding stage. We're doing a crowdfunding, and then after that, you know, we start really going into the pre-production and stuff like that. But with that, trying to get that funded has been so difficult. I mean, I've walked into an office where someone who initially had someone who had indicated interest in funding one of my projects, you know, the person had heard about me and my work, and, you know, had said, like, whatever you're doing next, you know, just show up. So I'm like, okay, I have something now, you know, let's come through. So we come through, and once we just open our mouths and say, Mami Wata, next thing we hear, Holy Ghost fire, blood of Jesus. you know, that's the reception we get. And so, like, I already know what to expect from a certain group of people in Nigeria. And, you know, I already know what to expect. And I wouldn't say it bothers me. It doesn't really. And I think if you're making a movie and you're making a movie and you have sort of like ideals about why you make films, you know, sort of like those kinds of comments become motivational pieces for you, because then you know that you're making a statement. You're not just making a movie. You're not just putting a movie out there. You're making statements that are going into people's minds, going to change people's minds, or going to anger people, or going to make people happy. You know, you're making films ultimately that mean something. So for me, it's all good. You know, it's all good. You know, we still have, you know, positive commentary as well. So, like, you take the good with the bad.
Yo, what up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your favorite boy, I'm Shine.
Yeah, Mr. Song is the Kingmaker.
If we're not that.
Leo the Silver.
Tanika.
Angel.
Always
download
Bounce News.
Bounce News.
Bounce News app from
The Google Play Store.
and the Apple Store.
It's fun.
Keep bouncing.
I've been interested in Afrofuturism for at least 10 years. At least 10 years. I've always known that it will blow up. I've always known this. Like, at some point, before Black Panther, Afrofuturism has sort of like been like for the cool kids club. You know, like only few people know about it, and like it's like an underground thing for members only. You know, that's sort of like that's what Afrofuturism was. You know, for some of us. You know, and I grew up on comics, including Black Panther. You know, like a lot of people don't realize that Black Panther has been around since the 70s. You know, so I grew up on that stuff. That has always been my orientation. So it's quite wrong to say that, you know, I made Hello Rain because of Black Panther, because that I've always leaned towards stuff like that. But to really make science fiction, you need a lot of money, which is why I have never tackled it before. You need a lot of money to make it, at least to make it believable to a degree. And this is the reason why, you know, as much as I had so many ideas put down on paper, I never quite made that leap to, you know, actually make a movie along those lines. But with everything, as a filmmaker, you eventually, like, sort of like the stars align. And when the stars align, you know, if you're a very sensitive person, you know when it's the right time to do something. And when I approached Nnedi about the project in like early 2017, like around January 2017. So it was way before Black Panther. But of course I had heard that, you know, they were making a movie about Black Panther. And I said it that this movie is going to break records. And as soon as it comes out, Afrofuturism, you can check the interviews I did. I said it, like, when Black Panther makes $1 gazillion in the box office, that Afrofuturism will eventually become mainstream. Because it was never mainstream prior to, you know, to Black Panther. And that's exactly what happened. It's, you know, it's just common sense. You know, people will flock to anything that is popular. It's just, you know, common sense. But that wasn't my motivation for making Hello Rain. My motivation was simply, it comes from a much deeper place than that. It comes from a place where I want to see African characters doing really kick-ass things, really awesome things, a different narrative, a different vision of what Africa is. You know, anyone who knows me knows, like, I'm like an evangelist when it comes to, you know, preaching an alternative Africa, what Africa could be. And I'm a history student as well. So like I study, you know, the deep cultures and civilizations of ancient Africa. And what could have been, you know, if certain things in history didn't happen, or if they happened a different way. For example, with colonization, if that didn't happen, you know, if a civilization that is literally hundreds of thousands of years old, like, you know, ancient Egypt or the Sudan, you know, or, you know, the ancient people of Congo, or the ancient Bini kingdoms and the ancient Igbo tribes. If all those societies that had advanced systems, you know, because the archaeology has been done, the science has been done, and we've seen how advanced these people were. And I'm talking like year 4 BC and stuff like that, like how advanced they were with their the way they built houses, the way their metric systems, the way they did their calculations, you know, like they were as advanced. I mean, like with the Igbo tribe, they had the NCBD system, you know, and this was way back, you know, before we even had like the industrial age or even the Middle Ages in Europe. So like they were that advanced. So like I always think, like, what if Africa as a whole, or Africa as we know it from the past, was allowed to develop at its own pace and to evolve? You know, like, what if it just makes you wonder, you know, what would be the modern day version of NCBD today? You know, so like when you start asking yourself those questions, then Afrofuturism starts giving birth. So that's kind of like how I've always approached it. And as soon as I realized that this was, like, I was on fire just thinking about that, you know, the name that always kept popping up, this was like years back, was Nnedi Okorafor. And when I started reading her stuff, I realized this was the person. She's the one, you know. So it happened. That's, you know, like when you want something bad enough, I think, you know, the universe always finds a way to make it happen.
Hi, my name is Kiki.
Sean Canterbury. DME Okolawon.
Je m'appelle Ufoma McDermott.
Ronke Odusoya.
Sean Wata.
And you're watching
Bounce.
Bounce.
to see a lot more.
Click here to subscribe, okay?